event. We are in the Grand Ballroom, the second floor of the Westin in Uptown Charlotte, and we are thrilled to bring into the room for our first of 5 schools today, the Tar Heels of North Carolina. As Coach Mack Brown and his student athletes approach the stage, we will remind you to please identify yourselves and the agencies that you are with. That'll certainly help us and the audience that's watching from home and from abroad. We're going to get to as many questions as possible with Coach within the first 15 minutes of his time, and then we'll do the same with our student athletes at 5 minutes apiece as we round out the half hour. We do know that our first question is going to come, Coach, to our left side, second row.
Hey, Mack, John Dale, Winston-Salem Journal. Was curious, what is the most difficult part of being a head coach in this day and age with, name, image, likeness, transfer portal, all that? Is it much more difficult than maybe the last few years?
Yes, because you're really multitasking so much more now than ever before. Roster management's more difficult than it's ever been. With the COVID year, you're not sure how many you're going to be able to sign. We were just told the other day you've got unlimited initials again this year, and we've been recruiting for 6 months. There's a lot of change at the NCAA level, so there's a lot of different rules. We were just told we could bring in 120 for preseason, and so we've got kids now that we told couldn't come in until school started. They got to go back and start. How many can you sign? How many did you leave? How many are going to the NFL? How many are going to be in the transfer portal? Who's going to graduate and leave early? Yeah, and then NIL is just a totally different situation, and it's more about the collective. We're really lucky that our guys have handled NFL and it hadn't disrupted our locker room, but I'm hearing nightmares across the country of kids being offered money, not being paid. They're getting in the transfer portal. I'm hearing locker rooms are disrupted, and it's I think when people ask me after my 5 years out, what was the biggest change when I got back, the biggest change was early signing date, because you're having official visits now in the spring, and guys are committing. And in the past, if you think about it, we'd have some guys come unofficially to a couple of games, and then you had January to have official visits, and they all signed in February. And now that's just all happening. We're recruiting guys from the class of 26. So everything's just speeded up. But then you add NIL, which is a great thing in so many ways. We talk about the negatives all the time, but these guys have a better situation right now than any athletes have ever had, because they do have a chance to make some money, which none have done in the past. But you add that and transfer portal and the collision of the two and tampering, those are things that make it more difficult to be a head coach.
Coach, to your right side, fourth row.
Kenton Gibbs with Locked On ACC. Coach, your offense and defense seem to be night and day at times in terms of the offense setting records and whatnot, while the defense finished last in a few categories. And then on top of that, replacing all the stars in the secondary except one and the defensive back coach in Dre Bly. How do you expect to retool there while still expecting to compete and do great things in terms of having a good season and all those good things with winning?
Yeah, we had a disastrous game up at App State, and I know I was in the media for 5 years, and you deal with so many different people. When you have an awful game like that, that gets to be the narrative. And then we did the same at Notre Dame. We didn't play well in either of those games, and both of them had good offensive teams. But after that, we played much better in the ACC. We averaged giving up 24 points a game, which is pretty good modern day, at least middle of the pack or a little bit better. I do feel good about our secondary. We were able to hire Jason Jones, who worked with Charlton Warren, one of our defensive coordinators at Indiana, so that's been a seamless transition. So I think we're going to be good on defense. And we got to be more aggressive. We got to be more aggressive up front. We got to stop the run more on first down, because now people are if it's a 3rd down and 7, they're going to go for 4th down. So they're going to try to run the ball on 3rd down or hit a short pass and then go for a 4th and 4. So the game's changed. But Coach Chiswick's got the 2nd year under his belt. The staff will be good together, and I feel like we'll be good. And we'll get tested early. We've got a really tough schedule to start the season with some very physical teams. South Carolina's going to run the ball, App State will run the ball, Minnesota's going to run the ball, and Pitt's going to run the ball. So it'll be a great 4 games to start out to see if we've improved like we think we have on defense.
Back to your left side, fourth row, almost going towards the wall.
Hey, Coach, David Glenn from the North Carolina Sports Network and the David Glenn Show. As you know, Drake is the first Carolina Player of the Year since a guy named Lawrence Taylor. And you have a new coordinator, you've lost some of his targets to the NFL, and yet you say you expect to see a better version of Drake this year. What goes into that kind of optimism under those circumstances?
Well, David, I haven't seen you since Friday, so it's been a while. Drake's had a great year last year, best freshman year of any freshman I've ever seen. And he just got better and better and better, and people didn't realize till 10 days before the opening game, we didn't announce Drake as a starter. So for him to take the role of leader and lead his football team like he did and be consistent each week was pretty phenomenal. And then after the season, Drake came in to me and said, help me with these things. These are things I need to improve, and that's who he is. That's why he's such a great player, is he was raised in a family of champions. He was raised in a family of athletes. His dad was a great quarterback. So he's always looking at what I can do better instead of patting himself on the back. And he's a little bit like me. We have to be careful with him because he's too hard on himself. And he's always, I didn't do this right. And I didn't, well, let's talk about what you did right too, so we can do that. So I think that he was involved in the hiring of Chip Lindsey. We've also got Clyde Christensen there, who coached the best quarterbacks in the NFL. We've also got Freddie Kitchens, who coached 2 #1 draft choices at quarterback. So we've got a lot of great help around Drake as well. As far as losing, you lose Antoine Green, you lose Josh Downs, you lose some powerful players, but then you bring in, you've got some good players that, because both of them were hurt some, neither one played in the bowl game, and we had good players step up, and you can, whether it's J.J. Jones or Gavin Blackwell or Kobe Paysor, or you can talk about those guys that stepped up last year at different times, but we also bring in Nate McCullum and we bring in Tez Walker. And Nate was very successful in this league at Georgia Tech. He's got great speed, he's tough, he can run it as well as throw it, so he can make yards after catch, so he's got some similarities to Josh that we lost. And Tez Walker's got the most amazing story I've ever seen. Here's a young guy that signs with East Tennessee State, hurts his knee. They gray shirt him, so he decides to go to UNC Central instead of East Tennessee State. COVID year hits. He can't play, so he transfers to Kent State. He has a great couple of years at Kent State, and then his whole coaching staff leaves. His grandmother's really sick. She's in Charlotte. She's never seen him play, so he transfers back here because that's where he wanted to be in the first place. That's where the transfer portal's so good to help kids get where they should be in the end. And he also is going to have his grandmother see him play for the first time here in Charlotte when we play South Carolina, and then she'll be able to drive to the home games. And I think we got 7 or 8 games in the state of North Carolina. So praise the Lord for her that she's going to be able to see him play for the first time. And I think both of those guys are really good. So along with the cast of guys that we've got that are talented, we've added 2 guys like the 2 we lost.
Coach, to your right, first row.
Terrence Hatchett, Carolina Blitz. Coach, you mentioned Tez Walker and Nate McCollum. You also bring in a new play caller in Chip Lindsey. How has the synergy on offense been with Chip so far? And you run a similar offense as you did last year. It's going to be some different wrinkles than last year. How has that been so far?
Yeah, Terrence, Drake can answer that as well. But when I was looking at a new guy to come in, I wanted to keep our passing game. It's been really good. So I started looking at guys first that had background with the air raid offense passing game, and Chip Lindsey averaged 33 points a game when he was calling plays and a coordinator at Arizona State and Auburn and Southern Miss. So he started this in high school. So he wants to keep the same passing game with a few tweaks, and he and Drake have tweaked what we're doing along with Lonnie Galloway, who's our passing game coordinator. And then you start looking at our running game. We were really good the first 2 years. We're best in the league. Last 2 years we've been middle of the road, and we haven't been as good. And running game helps our defense. The running game's our quarterback's best friend with pass protection. And Chip had been involved with Gus Malzahn at Arizona or at Auburn and at Central Florida, and they run the ball so well that I think you'll see us much better on offense in the running game, and very similar to what we've been in the passing game.
Coach, to your left, first row with the camera.
Coach Dan Tortora, wakeupcalldt.com. Obviously, you've seen this conference from the inside at Carolina twice, and you've seen it as an analyst on the outside. What can you say about the state of the ACC, in your opinion, as we get set to embark on a new schedule and no divisions, and just what your takeaways have been?
Yeah, Dave, I think the ACC is in great shape. You know, the whole concern is finances. That's what everybody's looking at now, and with the TV market changing so rapidly, your all's lives are changing all over the place with radio and TV and newsprint, and we're at a time where there's a lot of change, not only in your business but college football. And the thing that we've got to do in the ACC is keep looking at how we can make more money. The league's great. We've got some great teams. I think we've been to 9+ teams have been to bowls since 2015 or something. So there's a lot better teams top to bottom in this league than get credit, because Clemson's been so dominant, they've gotten all the credit. But there's been some really good teams, and so I feel like the league's in great shape. I know that the commissioner and all the presidents and athletics directors are all looking at how to make more money and how to enhance that package so we will have the same amount of money as the other leagues as they move forward.
Coach, your last question will come all the way up the aisle to the right, and David Teal in the back of the house.
Mack, David Teal from the Times-Dispatch in Richmond. You mentioned the Notre Dame game earlier. I believe you have 4 more years of playing them, not in a row, but before the contract ends. Do you like that kind of frequency? Do you like the arrangement of the games against the Irish for the conference and for North Carolina?
Yeah, David, I always like playing Notre Dame because they're a great brand and a great team. And it gives you a chance to increase your program, because when they walked out of there last year, they were more physical than we were on defense, and that showed all of us we need to get better. We got to recruit better. We got to coach better. We got to play better. And Notre Dame's that kind of brand. They've had a run against the ACC teams, and we have to step up and start competing better against them to get where we want to go. As far as the conference was concerned, I like the divisions. I've always liked that, because I like to have a division champion and then have that champion play in the ACC against the other division champion. We went to across the board like we're doing now in the Big 12 before I left, and you can very well have 2 teams play in the championship game that have just played, and that was less likely the other way, so I liked it much better.
Coach, thank you. You can switch places with John Copenhaver, and we'll spend a few minutes with our tight end. Once again, if you would identify yourselves and the agency that you're with, that would be great, and we will reset the clock for John for our 5 minutes. So we'll go